And Jenko, all in favor, and that's carried. Just acknowledge Director Lewis from Area E. Welcome. One set of minutes for adoption, and so just ask for a motion to adopt those as well. Councillor Lumley, Councillor White, all in favor, and that's carried. Got two delegations. First of all, Mr. Taves, is that the correct? Sorry? Taves, sorry. You want to come forward here, please, and speak to us?
Okay. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the homeless count which is taking place in Seashelt, Roberts Creek, and Gibsons on April 23rd. So you guys have the handout? Yeah, okay. So I'm basically just going to go through it, and then if you have any questions, you can ask. Okay, so the count, as it says, is a point-in-time snapshot of the homeless members of our community. So it takes place on a one day and involves volunteers and collaborating service providers engaging people on walking routes as part of outreach teams and at meal services and drop sites. So we're working with a specific definition of homelessness for the purpose of this, so that the information can be best used later in knowing where funding should go or what kind of needs are in the community. So the definition of homelessness is divided into two categories for the purpose of the survey or the count. There's sheltered homeless, including people staying in emergency shelters, safe houses, transition houses, families who have been given rooms in hotels for lack of shelter or transition house beds. It also includes people who are no fixed address, who are currently or that day in jail or hospital care, those other kinds of facilities. Unsheltered people includes people in vehicles in the woods, on the street, park, boats, and people staying with friends and family, couch surfers, and that's a really big group of people that we're trying really hard to reach out to. So we know that it's a really prevalent issue here on the coast. And so we want to make clear that the definition of homelessness includes those people that are in need of a home as well, even if you currently have a physical roof over your head. So participating organizations, Public Library, Salvation Army, Rain City Housing, Sunshine Coast Community Services, among others. We're really formalizing the schedule of drop sites and meal services right now. So I can't really tell you exactly where and when that stuff's going to be, but that information will be out next week. And I've been talking to reporters about it already, so hoping that we'll get that information and all those details in the paper, as well as have a comprehensive advertising with flyers, social media, all of the above, basically. And at that point, the idea will be to get the message out to the homeless members of our community to invite them to come and engage with the process. In addition to the street count, and the day of the count happens on the 23rd, we do a simple head count on the night before, so the 22nd, and that includes the no fixed address people staying in hospitals, detox, jail, and those kinds of facilities. So I mean, you can think of the count as basically a census gathering, but it's a one-day point-in-time snapshot as well. So yeah. So that's what we're doing, and I wanted you all to be totally aware of what was going on and have an opportunity to ask any questions. There's a little bit of information here on the funding organization and how that's structured as well. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Taves. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor White.
Just trying to recall, when was the last count done and what was the result?
Okay, well, the last count that was done was just Seashelt. Yeah, and so originally the funding for this count was for Seashelt, but because there's so much movement between these communities, we figured that we had the ability to include Seashelt, Roberts Creek, and Gibsons together, and get a more accurate picture of what's going on. The last one was done in 2009, but it was done by the Schizophrenic Society. I'm not sure what methodology they used for the count, so I can't really comment on that, but I do know that they had somewhere in the mid-50s of people just within the central Seashelt area. Yeah.
Okay, it's a good initiative. It's very important to have some hard statistics in order to be able to sort of access any funding for our community. So
That's the idea, yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. So thank you for your participation in that, and we look forward to seeing what comes out of it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, my info is there. If you guys have any questions coming up, any one of you, drop me a line.
Good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Taves, for coming out this evening. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay, we have a second delegation, Ms. Rule and Ms. Danroth.
Mayor and Council, for the love of Gospel Rock, which is the name of our non-profit society, would like to put on public record that we are opposed to Chester and Pratt Roads in Elphinstone being used as the sole access for the development of the proposed Gospel Rock Village. This village proposal would include a hotel, pub, restaurant, store, and over 700 residences, with all their vehicles, delivery and service trucks, etc. Traffic would also include the monumental construction phase of the proposed development of Block 7. And this traffic does not include the future development of other parcels in the Gospel Rock neighborhood plan. We are not assured that an alternate route will ever be put in. At the 2012 public hearing on the Gospel Rock neighborhood plan, the community came out overwhelmingly opposed to any development on Block 7. The town has consistently ignored our vision for a park for all of Block 7. With their redirection of the park acquisition fund of over $300,000 to the Gibsons public market, they clearly prevented our possibility of acquiring it for a park. This development plan, with its overwhelming traffic, completely destroys our existing beautiful semi-rural community. Our society still has the goal of preserving all of Block 7 as a natural park. In addition, I would like to read and present a statement from the Elphinstone Community Association, who are not affiliated with our society. Their letter has also been sent to the Honourable Selina Robinson and the Honourable Claire Trevina. To the Honourable Selina Robinson and Claire Trevina. Elphinstone Community Association on the Sunshine Coast has grave concerns about the road access to the proposed Gospel Rock development in the town of Gibsons. At present, the only planned access to this large proposed development would be through the regional district of Elphinstone along Chester Road and out onto Pratt Road, which is unacceptable to the residents of Area E. The SCRD has requested that the town of Gibsons build access to Gospel Rock before development permits are issued, and we feel that it is an absolute minimum for this large development. We enjoy living in a semi-rural area with a school, family neighborhoods, and many farms and residents here already face an increasing amount of traffic racing along Pratt Road. The existing proposal would create a real problem for residents of Pratt Road and Chester Road, beginning with a massive construction traffic pouring through the neighborhood. Other roads in our area will be impacted as well, and since we are in a regional district, road maintenance falls to the province. We are sure that you will have concerns about the prospect of several hundred additional vehicles pouring out from Chester onto Pratt, for which you have responsibility. At a meeting in August 2017 on this subject, nearly 100 people from our area attended unanimously agreed that this plan, with its sole access through Area E, is unacceptable. Many residents spoke vehemently against the plan, and a petition quickly garnered 233 signatures from local residents. We thank you for your willingness to consider this matter and trust you will be able to help resolve it. Sincerely, Faye Kiewitz, Chair, Elphinstone Community Association. And then Susan Rule will make her comments and present the Elphinstone petition on this issue. And I should say that that is also not affiliated with For the Love of Gospel Rock.
Thank you, Ms. Danroth.
This is my first time doing this. Hello all. Hi, this is my third time here again. And so, I'm Susan Rule. I live on Pratt Road. I've lived there for 14 years. I've observed it. My big garden's out in the front, so I get to watch the traffic. I get to watch my neighbors. I get to watch my community. I get to see children coming to and from school. And so this is why this issue is so important to me. It's not because I'm a NIMBY. It's because it will impact the lives of Area E and Pratt Road. And what I can't understand is how the town thinks it's okay to affect one whole community to build a whole another community. Anyway, on that, I will start. So I have these sheets that I wanted to hand out. It's called Infrastructure Before Development, before building 250 units. And I have 13 reasons why for Pratt, Rosemond, and Chester. So here we go. Number one, the emergency situation, water for the fire hall if there was a fire, and where the water would be coming from for that development. And because with one road access for emergency. Number two, safety risk to our children to and from walking, cycling in a multi-use lane, which we have one, as you all know. Big trucks speed down there, and children can be distracted coming to and from school on their little bicycles from Fircrest and the other roads on the other end. Of which there is a very tiny lane and gravel which they can slide on, which could, take them into the traffic. So we have no crosswalks, as you know, because we're a rural route. We have no lighting. Number three, this development, as you know, is not in our tax base. It's the town of Gibsons' tax base. Number four, the pollution that this would cause in terms of this build would be the exhaust from trucks, noise, dust, huge equipment being brought in, cement trucks, lumber trucks, employees in their pickup trucks, and lots of dump trucks loading in and out constantly. And so that would affect our quality of life and our air quality. Number five, too many left-hand turners from Highway 101 and Pratt Road. So, for instance, coming from Pratt Road, all of that traffic would have to be backed up, possibly blocking ferry traffic to turn left. So that would cause a flow issue there. Plus, when they get down Pratt Road, they all have to go left again onto Chester. Again, that could be blocking traffic for side streets like Malaview, and also adding to the air pollution, and there would be idling exhaust. For 250 houses, everyone has to go left. Or if they come the other way, right. But the majority would be coming from the highway. It just doesn't make sense. Plus blocking driveways and, like I said, side streets. Number six, this is a food-producing rural heritage farmland area. And because we have food security issues, because we are dependent on ferries, it's a really important area to look after and nurture, as we all know how important food is to all of us. So with that, with the animals, the chickens, the people, the wildlife, it's an area to honor, I think. Anyway, number seven, the residents that would be caught between Chester and Rosemond. So the front of their property is on, say, the front of Rosemond. The back of their property is now on Chester. So again, and that would also cause possible street light pollution. So not only would they be getting all this traffic in the front, they'd also be getting all this traffic in the back. I'm sure none of you, in where you live in your homes now, would want that to suddenly happen to any of you, especially if you are retired. Number eight, school catchment. Cedar Grove Elementary School is full. So my understanding is the school catchment would now be, because it's the town's development, would be in the Gibsons elementary catchment. So any of us that live down there, if Pratt's the only arterial road, a parent that travels driving their child to school, that's one trip. They come home, that's another trip. Go and pick up child, that's another trip, and then come home. Say that's 250 units. At 4 trips a day, not including all the other things we travel for, job, ferry, church, shopping, sports, and plus the possible businesses that would be bringing traffic down Pratt. That alone is 2,000 trips a day. Number 9. Shaw Route is a far more greener choice, Shaw Inglis, it's more environmental, it is more direct to the shopping area, to Gas Church, Ferry, and Lower Gibsons. And I get it. They don't want the busy traffic on their roads either. And perhaps, I don't know, they have deeper pockets. I don't know. Number 10, this is our community to protect, to preserve our way of life and the safety of our families and our children. Number 11, we already need traffic calming on Pratt Road for the safety of the children, seniors, cyclists, strollers, and we're all stakeholders in this one multi-use lane. Ask the police. People have been clocked at driving Pratt Road anywhere between 80 to motorcycles up to 120. And I do not exaggerate. I was told that by a policeman on more than one occasion. So it wasn't a one-time occurrence. Number 12, wildlife crossing. When the area is going to be developed, the wildlife will increase, because when that fence went up last time, the wildlife was showing up in our backyards, and it also increased on Pratt Road. So where will all the wildlife go? Do we care as a society? Does it matter to us? Was it part of the reason possibly we moved here? And number 13 is, it's not ethical for the town to dump all its traffic on SCRD Area E Elphinstone and to run it all down Pratt Road without putting in another arterial road. We're not saying Pratt Road can't be used, because of course it will be used, and Chester will be used, and Rosemond, but we need another road to share this load. And that's what I'm here to ask for today. So I have copies that I wanted to hand out. And the other thing, I have read this petition out here before, and I'm probably nearing my time, so I won't read the petition out again. But I will leave a copy of this petition. We are still getting signatures. If anyone else wants to sign this evening, they're welcome. There's 233 signatures and on here, and I will leave a copy of that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rowe. Okay, move on to item 5.1, which is the Committee of the Whole meeting. So I'll just ask for a motion to receive those minutes, please. Councillor Valeriot, Councillor Sanjanko, all in favor, and that's carried. First one has to do with the development variance permit on Seaview Road. I wasn't at that committee meeting, but I was just looking at the recommendations, and I see that the recommendation was to bring forward the report. There wasn't a recommendation with respect to the issuance of the variance permit. So what are we looking at, Ms. Stantz?
Thank you, Mayor Rowe. This is an application for a development variance permit to relax a setback from 4.5 meters to 1 meter to construct an accessible carport on Seaview Road. A new house is currently being constructed on the property, and the rationale for building in that particular location is to enable wheelchair accessibility from the home to the carport. So staff have no concerns with the application and are recommending issuance.
All right, so this is one that still has to have the opportunity for any input at this point. Is that correct? Okay. So is there anyone here that wishes to make any submissions with respect to this particular development variance permit? This is for 566 Seaview Road. Okay. No one? All right. Do I have a motion from council?
I visited the site last week and talked to some neighbors who were around out in their yards in the weather and in the good weather, and nobody had any issue with it. They were aware of it and had no issue, so I'll move it.
All right, it's moved by Councillor White, second by Councillor Valeriot. Further discussion? If not, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, 5.1.2, 3 rather. This is for 623 Gower Point Road. Ms. Stats, is there anything you wish to add on this one?
Since it was presented to the committee of the whole, we received 2 letters. So I believe council has a copy of those letters. One is a repeat letter from a neighbor in opposition, and one is a letter of support. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody present this evening that wishes to make any submissions to council with respect to this development variance permit application for 623 Gower Point Road? Okay, there's one gentleman. Would you come forward just to take the mic and state your name and place of residence, please?
Hello, my name is Casey Van Rixort. I'm from 627 Gower Point Road, right next door to 623. I feel that the slope of the property kind of negates the problem with the excess height, because it's not unlike the slope that we see here. So there's quite a pronounced difference between Gower Point Road and the lane. And also the proposed garage underneath the residence, it would house some parking, which is there's not much parking around, so I think that it would help in parking. And I don't quite understand why, since it's a garage and it won't be lived in, why the square footage of that has to be included in the 14% rule that is in place for the square footage of a lane house. In Vancouver, they have many lane houses, and the rules are quite often go to a variance board, and they're changed because of parking.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that has any submissions with respect to this particular application? All right, so I'll open it up for discussion, I guess, at this point. Councillor White?
I recall when we looked at this in committee, there were a number of conditions that are here that were brought recommendations as part of the recommendation from staff, and we had a chance to sound it out a bit and hear from staff about why those conditions were being suggested, and we heard from the property owner and said they were agreeable to a couple of the conditions that we asked about. And in the first round of input from the community, there were some concerns that I think some of these recommendations should address or at least mitigate. And other than that, there was significant support from the neighbors. So I'm ready to move this, unless there are other questions from.
Probably just before you do move it, I will say that this one has caused me some discomfort. There are a number of letters in support, but the ones that were not in support, from what I saw there, really are the neighbors that are most directly impacted potentially by this structure. A lot of the other letters in support were from adjacent properties on Gower Point Road and even some up on Bayview. And I don't see them as being as impacted as the people across the lane. I do have some concerns about whether this really was the intent of the, the laneway housing bylaw that we put in effect. I just have to make those comments that I'm not comfortable with it, but certainly given the recommendations from the Advisory Planning Commission and significant support from the neighborhood, I'm probably not going to oppose it, but just leave it with those comments. So you're prepared to move that, is that correct? Is there a seconder? Councillor Sanjanko. Is there further discussion on this one? And if not, then I will call all in favor, and that's carried. 5.1.4, I think that's pretty straightforward. Councillor White?
I'd just like to move it with slightly different wording, just to clarify that this was a draft Parks Master Plan that was never really a formal.
Right.
This seems to imply it's the Parks Master Plan, but it was only really a proposed one from 2000 and 2010. Yeah. So I'll say that the draft 2010 Parks Master Plan be forwarded to a strategic planning session of the next council.
Okay. Seconder then. Councillor Valerian. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you for that. 7.1, Gospel Rock Bylaw, Director of Planning.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mayor Rowe. The developers are in the audience and are available for questions from council if needed, although they will need to catch the last ferry home, so they'll be out at 8:30. So council reviewed this application on March 6th and adopted the following resolution, basically to bring back a bylaw forward for first reading, to bring a term sheet forward prior to second reading, and to prepare development permit area guidelines as per the OCP policy. So attached to this report is a proposed comprehensive development zone for council's consideration of first reading. The next two directives will be presented at a future meeting. So the purpose of this report is to obtain direction from council on whether to deem the Gospel Rock Village proposal consistent with the official community plan and the Gospel Rock neighborhood plan. If deemed consistent, there is a proposed bylaw presented for first reading. So this is a conceptual subdivision plan which shows the proposed lot configuration for Block 7. The light green represents the park dedication with public access. The dark green represents the privately held green belt, and the white represents the proposed lots. The plan shows the apartment lots on the north. So I'll show you here. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4 apartment lots. There's townhouses in here and townhouses here and here. So 3 proposed lots for townhouses. And then in the middle over here and down here are single family lots. So there's 56 single family lots. The proposed development is clustered into the northwest corner of Block 7. By pulling the development up, a greenbelt corridor is proposed along the waterfront portion of Block 7. This design is consistent with planning goals and principles in both the Gospel Rock Neighborhood Plan and the OCP. So this slide summarizes a list of policy headings in the Gospel Rock Neighborhood Plan. There's a total of about 50 policies in the neighborhood plan divided into the following subheadings. So there's land use policies, infrastructure policies, cultural policies, development permit areas, and community amenities. And then there are subheadings under land use and infrastructure. The proposed development application is closely aligned with the majority of these 50 policies, except once it's subdivided, the proposal becomes inconsistent with 4 residential land use policies. So in summary, the 4 policies that are not met once subdivided are listed here. So, and the reason for that is single-family policies for single-family lots require a maximum lot size of 4,000 square meters. Cluster housing has to have a density of 16 units per acre. Townhouses have to have a maximum density of 16 units per acre, and then apartments have a density of 36 units per acre. So the proposal proposes single-family lots that are greater than 4,000 square feet, and the townhouse and apartment densities exceed the specific policies. So why is there a density discrepancy? Densities in the Gospel Rock Neighborhood Plan is counted in units per acre, so the number of units is based on the lot area. Block 7 is 48 acres, so based on a density of 16 units per acre, it's allowed 753 units. The developer has proposed to develop the lot with 360 units, which is less than half of the allotted density of 753. So on this scale, on Block 7 as a whole, the proposal meets the policies in the OCP and Gospel Rock Neighborhood Plan. On a subdivision scale, 49% of the block is dedicated to green space in the form of parks, conservation areas, and passive recreation trails. So this is shown as green on this development plan or subdivision plan. The green belt or conservation area is proposed to be a single lot. Thanks. The green belt is proposed to be a single lot based on the lot configuration. And because of this, it excludes the green belt from other lot area calculations and therefore ultimately counts against the developer's density. So staff discussed an option with the developer to realign lot configurations to meet density policies. It is technically possible because there is enough land in Block 7. And to do this, the green belt would be subdivided into multiple parcels and hooked across roads, basically to increase lot areas for the apartments and townhouse lots. And then to do that, they would also have to make the single-family lots smaller and closer together to meet the maximum lot area policy. So in a realigned proposal, the green space would still be protected in a conservation area, but it would be multiple lots instead of one large standalone lot. So a lot line reconfiguration is not the preferred option, as the developer has indicated it would change the scope of the project. Also, larger single-family lots are preferred in this area, and this design maintains the pedestrian-oriented focus with the smaller lots with higher density and then larger single-family lots on the outside. Further, hooking lots across roads makes an unnecessarily complex subdivision plan. So the developer provided a drawing to explain their rationale for the design with 4 reasons. So up above it shows a large lot with an apartment on it, and below is what's proposed. So the 4 reasons. First reason, they're integrating a mix of uses with a storefront on the ground level. Number 2, they're proposing to step the building with the terrain. Number 3, the apartment lot sizes are smaller because surface parking is underground. And number 4, 49% of Block 7 is dedicated to protected parks and green space. So staff have presented 2 options for Council's consideration. Option 1 is to proceed with the zoning amendment, and this would deem the proposal to be consistent with the Town of Gibsons OCP and Gospel Rock Neighborhood Plan. And it also, the second part to that is passing first reading for the bylaw amendment. The second option is to deem the proposal inconsistent with the OCP. And the reason for that would be because the density for apartments and townhouses exceeds the policy, and the proposed lots for single family are larger than 4,000 square feet. And then the second part to that, to option 2, would be to ask for the developer to apply for an OCP amendment. So staff's recommendation is option 1. And the reason for this is because typically green space or covenanted protected areas are counted towards lot areas for density calculations. Because Block 7 meets density as a whole and could still meet density by realigning lot layouts, staff considers the current design consistent with the OCP. Further, staff recommend passing first reading of the bylaw and then proceeding with the term sheet for the next report to council. So this slide is an update of the proposed bylaw amendment that was presented to the Committee of the Whole in February. This slide basically shows a high-level overview of the additions and deletions to the proposed CDA 4 zone, which was initially presented. And since it was presented, it has had a legal review. The text and maps have been simplified for clarity as well. So the differences are the park and green space is proposed to be zoned PRO, which is public recreation and open space, and that's what current parks are zoned as. The residential density is added, so there's a maximum number of all dwelling units, which is 360, and it limits the number of apartments and townhouses to 150 units. Sub-area 1 has a smaller lot area, so half-acre lot size to meet the proposal. Sub-area 1 also has a maximum commercial floor area of 5,000 square feet, so that's directly from the OCP. And then there's added off-street parking provisions to allow for shared parking under Sub-area 1 and Sub-area 2, so underground parking there. And then again, to meet densities, secondary suites and garden suites have been taken out of the zone so that they meet the bylaw or the OCP requirements. So staff recommendation is that council deems the Gospel Rock proposal to be consistent with the Town of Gibson's OCP and Gospel Rock Neighbourhood Plan, and that council gives the Gospel Rock Village Amendment Bylaw a first reading. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Stats. Just to clarify the green space area. So is the intention then just, I think this is what you're saying, is to subdivide it so it becomes its own legal parcel?
That's right. That's what they're proposing.
And that's basically a parcel that couldn't be built on based on how it would be zoned, right?
That's right, and there would be a conservation covenant on it to prevent building.
What I was trying to sort of get at, I guess, is what the eventual ownership of that might be after the development's gone ahead. Because, excuse me, I mean, that was one of the potential, one of the possibilities around the hooked parcels was that would be, part of some of the other subdivided areas there based on the hooked parcel. So it would, ownership would ultimately remain. I'm assuming there's going to be some form of strata type development in parts of that, and it would be my guess. So the hooked parcels would retain ownership with the people that own those parcels in there. So I'm just, at this stage, I suppose there's really unknown as to, who the ownership of that property or the greenbelt ultimately devolves to. It would be subdivided off under this proposal and would belong whoever the current owner is as a separate lot, but one that really is zoned in a way that nothing can be done on it. Fair enough?
Yeah, so there would be two parts to that. It would be zoned parks, recreation, and open space, and there would also be the additional restrictive covenant on it to prevent development.
Okay. All right. Okay. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, I had a question on the lot size, the single-family dwelling, 4,000 square foot lot size. Like, does that go back to the original thinking that if this property was purchased and developed, that it would just be a group of single-family dwellings? Was that the case? Like, is that why they're so small? I mean, the lot size is 4,000 square feet. I mean, they're building homes on South Fletcher bigger than 4,000 square feet as we sit here, but it seems like a pretty small lot size. I would only assume that they would just figure that it would just be, it'd be one of these ugly subdivisions with hundreds of homes on small lots. But is that how that number came about, or?
So that's a good question. The Gospel Rock Neighborhood Plan and the OCP talk about, or there are policies that guide mixed-use development, that guide commercial in that area, apartments, townhouses, and single-family. So the development as a whole does meet those guidelines, but the reason for the tiny lot areas, I'm not sure where that came from, but they are very small.
Well, anybody's considering questions. I don't. Thank you for your background on this. I don't think that I think we need to view it as a whole. So the fact that green space gets subdivided off and is a separate parcel, I don't think should detract from what would otherwise be permitted. Based on the size of the lot. So I don't see that as an issue. I should maybe just in deference to some of the sort of submissions that were made to us at the beginning of the meeting. This Gospel Rock process started in 2005. It's when the planning process began. And a select committee was established in 2008. By the way, that included representatives from Area E. And that committee produced a couple of different plans that were brought forward to the then council at that time. And the council elected not to proceed with either of those plans. In 2009, a refinement working committee was established, also including representatives from Area E. And they worked through and came up with some recommendations in 2010. Those recommendations were further refined by council in 2011. And in 2012, there was a public hearing. Council received over 158 written submissions, many verbal submissions. And as a result of all of that process over a period of what's now been 17 years, I guess, or 15 years, came up with this plan and, recognized that the plan contemplates a build-out of in excess of 1,000 units in that area. But the town recognized the potential impact on our neighbors, and in that plan placed the restriction that there would not permit more than 250 units to be developed until such time as there was an alternative access through the town, ideally up the Shaw Road area. So that was all taken into consideration, and in consideration of our neighbors. There was a comment made about infrastructure first. There's no pot of money to just go out and put in roads and sewers and water lines. It has to start with a development because the money has to be generated to do that. So there has to be some development before the infrastructure can take place. So the town will proceed through its processes as the way it normally would, and there'll be ongoing opportunities for further submissions after this. Having said that, anything else, Councillor Sanjenko?
I'd just like to add a couple of comments as well. tonight we're specifically talking about density. One of the areas that we definitely need to cover and understand in this project. I know that there are a number of people here that are have their minds elsewhere on road access and traffic, and I want to thank you for being part of the process and being here tonight. The one thing that I just want to make sure that you understand is by giving something, a development proposal at first reading, actually brings it into this process. So you being here and speaking and us working through one aspect, if we don't take something even into the first reading, it doesn't even bring it onto the table. So I know that our staff has been working with the development team, and I've actually been really pleased with everything that has come forward so far, and how respectful and how much community engagement there has been to this point. And there's going to be many more opportunities, but it starts with first reading to get us talking about it. And I just want to kind of put that out there. And we are going through the process, but thank you for being part of it, being here tonight.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Since we're already talking about it, I'll move first reading and move the recommendations.
I was going to say move the recommendations, which includes first reading.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Speak to that.
Sure. I'll move second then, please. Councillor Sanjanko. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm very pleased that we've got an opportunity to consider this development within the official community plan and within the Gospel Rock neighborhood plan, because all that work and community dialogue did go into that plan that you've described, Mr. Mayor, and that was just the latest incarnation of a process to try to reach a plan for Gospel Rock. I know there were others over decades, so that's exciting that we can look at this, and not only that by looking at it as one property, which is why I support the first recommendation. It does allow the preservation of 49% in green space, and bringing the density down actually by such a significant number from 753 to 360. So I think that can mitigate concerns, and not only that, it's going to take a long time for this build out to occur, even this phase of it, and I'm confident that in that time, other alternatives. This isn't council has already approved staff to look at other transportation alternatives. We did that back in November and December, and I understand that work's been going ahead and has been promising, and I'm confident that there'll be results for that we can report on soon, hopefully.
Further comments here? I call the vote. Not then, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you for your report, Ms. Stamps. Okay, any inquiries, please? And if not, I'm going to ask for a motion to close. Councillor White, Councillor Lumley, all in favor? That's carried. We'll take a 10-minute break while